You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith Johnson.
From the AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com, and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AFTERBUZZ TV's The Walking Dead After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. If you'd like to buzz in on tonight's show, you can buzz us at 424-256-1729. That's 424-256-1729. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's The Walking Dead After Show.
Hey guys, what is happening? Bing is for doing, and we're doing The Walking Dead AFTERBUZZ After Show for Clear. What does it mean? We will discuss that soon, but guys, joining us again after a whole week hiatus, whatever, on the left side, the lovely Christon Carole.
Hey guys.
And next to her, Derriol Kristin.
What's up, guys?
Both at the Oscars. Doing big things, whatever, leaving us behind.
Represent for Walking Dead.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. And next to me, Nando Velasquez.
Hey guys, how you doing?
And guys, I am Dave Klein, and in the booth we've got Steven.
Hey guys, what's up?
Who, if you watched last week, you saw him join us in the panel, so he's a huge Walking Dead fan and fanatic as well. So guys, let's jump into the episode. And I kind of feel like this episode was a bit of a slowdown from the previous episodes we've seen, kind of almost a break from the main storyline.
Yeah.
Which was kind of a breath to me. I think it was a breath that was a little bit needed, because I was thinking about it before. When you compare season 2 to season 3, how much faster paced this season has been. You kind of need that breath to think about the characters a little bit, because things have just been happening so quickly.
But it still had some surprises, even though it was a slower pace of it. That's what I liked. It kept me on my feet without, making me tired.
Yeah, and I felt like I learned a lot more about certain relationships that I'm sure we'll talk about today, but I just felt like I learned a lot more about the characters and their relationships with it being kind of a slower focus tonight.
Yeah, I agree with that. Relationships were really big on this. It felt like a palate cleanser to me. After all we've gone through, it was a nice little palate cleanser just to clean your mouth before next week. So. And
I agree, and I think it's good because it's what you guys said. It was a character builder. We got to finally see and find out a little bit more about some of the characters who have really been remaining silent throughout most of this season. But let's go ahead and jump in, literally. So
yeah, literally.
Literally jump.
We already love Michonne. I didn't think I could love her anymore. But then this episode happened, and she she kicked some butt and made some jokes. It was great.
Made some great jokes. But let's talk about the beginning, where we see them pass by a sign, and they're all driving in their beautiful, clean Hyundai again. And the sign says, "Aaron, we tried for Stone Mountain." And they're all driving out, and the person, kind of a backpacker guy, is running out after them, wanting their help, and they just leave him. And I was kind of just sitting there thinking, like, man, they've become such assholes.
I know. And actually, I felt really bad for that guy. I mean, I actually didn't really understand why they left him at that point. I mean, at least have a slight conversation with him and just see if he can get in the car with them.
I mean, I think they just think their stuff is so important, they have so much going on, that they don't want another straggler and another person.
Or another question mark that goes in there. Well, I told you guys when we were watching, I went to PaleyFest, and they showed the first 10 minutes, and everybody in the entire theater, and there were about 2,000 people in there, started laughing when they left the hitchhiker twice.
Yeah.
So it just hardened them, and they don't. It's too big of a question mark to take on somebody else.
I think after what happened last week with Andrea and the fact that they couldn't even trust somebody they knew, and then by the end, Rick started to open up a little bit, but I think it just shows that he's still not 100% there.
Right.
And notice the one thing that I noticed that was really interesting, and I'll bring it up again later, is that when they drove by, the only person who bothered to look back was Carl.
It was Carl, yeah.
Nobody else bothered to look back. So it just shows how hardened they are, and maybe because Rick's on a mission. They want to get more supplies. They want to get more guns. He doesn't need to worry about another variable, another question mark, and he doesn't want to bring anyone else on his mission.
Another mouth to feed, and it's just a whole big problem.
I have a mixed opinion about that, because don't you think that you also need to supply your, with more troops? You know what I mean? Like, you need to kind of see who else is out there that can help you, because they also have lost people too.
Yeah.
So you need other additional people. I'm not saying to necessarily definitely take the guy in the car with you, but at least check them out and see if, like, you can test someone out and see if they're worthy of getting in the car with them to go on the voyage.
Well, Rick's still not sane. He's still not 100% sane, so he's not thinking that clearly.
Except if they stopped and they got to know him and then they said, like, oh, we actually don't like this guy, I think that would be harder to reject somebody that you even meet for a second than somebody that's just a random guy on the street.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with you guys, though, but it's just like he wanted Morgan. And but he's refusing to even stop for this guy. And there's a reason they wanted Morgan. I mean, we'll get to that in a moment. But it's just like, still, you need more troops. And it's just, I feel like everyone, the governor in this show, Rick in this show, everybody's just become this hardened, kind of bad people. And it's just like, I honestly, and this is kind of where I have issues with the show, I really feel like people wouldn't become that much of assholes. Because everybody in the show is becoming like this. And I just don't totally buy that. It's kind of a psychology thing with this show, and maybe you agree, maybe you don't agree. That's where I have issues with a lot of zombie movies and shows, is people becoming like this.
Well, not everybody was like that. We saw a couple episodes ago that Derriol risked his life to save a family that was being attacked by zombies, where it would have been so much easier. This guy wasn't even being, attacked, but at that point. But not everybody's taken on a different role that way, and you also have to imagine it's been, almost 2 years now of this, and just people fighting people. You don't.
Also remember who's in the car with Rick. He's got somebody that he doesn't 100% trust already in Michonne, and he has his son who he's also trying to protect. He's ready for the real world, but he wants to protect him. Right. So that's something to think of too. He has a responsibility to the people in the car, and even if this guy looks completely innocent and whatever, I mean, we saw they got stuck in the mud just a few minutes later, and maybe just stopping for someone, trying to be a good Samaritan might hurt him, and maybe he just driven to protect his people, get on his mission, get his guns for whatever's coming up next with the governor, and move on.
Well, there's a huge theme in this episode I saw of out of sight, out of mind. I mean, looking at how they film the scene where you first see the hitchhiker, it doesn't show his face. They don't look at him, they don't see his face. They're introducing this character in such a way that you'll forget about them, because they're going to forget about him. They're not even going to introduce themselves, because he is just as everyone is now. They're out of sight, out of mind. And we see this again when we come into contact with Morgan, and then everything's brought back. But before then, we weren't even thinking about Morgan. And even with his family, because everything's going on without even us knowing about it. And then we hear of his family and thinking back to decisions that caused problems, and his wife was out of sight, out of mind until she came back in the end, just like the hitchhiker came back in the end.
That's a good point. So in the same scene, we get them getting stuck in the mud for a little bit, as you mentioned, and kind of a brief scene, but we get Carl talking to Rick for a moment about how he doesn't trust Michonne, and Rick explained the whole mutual interest idea. And I'm kind of thinking another thing that we get throughout this, and the show in general, but a lot in this episode, is what exactly is Carl getting in this world, and what themes is he being taught, especially at the end with the scene with Morgan. But something I want to mention just about the Hyundai real quick before we move on. I had to go rewind. I wanted to make sure they were driving a Hyundai, because there's actually a Hyundai car show in Chicago a couple weeks ago that my parents went to, and they took pictures for me. They had Walking Dead themed Hyundai cars that had spikes sticking out of them, and they were really dirty, and they had spikes on the sides and things for, like, if you wanted to run over and kill zombies and walkers. And I'm just thinking, why are the ones in the show completely clean, like they just got a car wash magically?
They look like
Well, the ones you would want for the show are the ones that they were showing in this car show, of having spikes on the sides and things like that. That's what I want to have.
Well, they had one. I didn't see the Chicago show, but they did have one at Comic-Con in San Diego last year too. It was right next to the G4 booth, because we kept doing shots of it during the live show, and it was the same thing. Yeah, I guess it's some kind of agreement with Hyundai. But
we want to make it look nice on the show, because about 12 million people are seeing it. You want to know that your car still looks nice even in the zombie apocalypse.
Well, the people who mow the lawns also do car inspections in the zombie apocalypse. And it just doesn't, it's not up to code.
There it is. That's exactly what it is.
Maybe it's a sneak preview for next season or something.
So on the chat, the dynamic Uno says that they think the presence of Woodbury puts a huge damper on the humanity of the entire crew. And as we were kind of talking about that's all that's on their mind as well. And then Lions fan says that he thought maybe they thought something bad would happen to them if they stopped for the hitchhiker, which is kind of that idea of protecting the son that you brought up, Nando.
Because who knows? This guy could pretend to be nice, and all of a sudden they pull over and he pulls out a gun and he's taking all their ammo.
I do love the fact that they get stuck and the guy catches up with his big knapsack and then they run off. I kind of wanted to see. I kind of wanted to see, like, you know, when you're a kid and you're like your friends play that whole like, oh, we're gonna stop the car for you, and you're trying to get to the car and they keep moving. I was kind of almost hoping for that. I hate to say that.
I'd rather see them do that to Merle later on. Like that would be funny.
That's a good point. And actually, Liz brought up, Denai talked about it, Denai, who plays Michonne, that even today without zombies, people just drive by the homeless without stopping. So this is kind of almost like that. Like a beggar out, you kind of just drive by and pretend they don't exist. It's sort of the same concept when you think about it.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, but on the
flip
side, there's like, there's not a lot of people around on The Walking Dead, so you're gonna notice people a little bit more than just your regular
homeless person.
Homeless person on the
squeaky
street.
Guy. Yeah.
Don't you want someone else to talk to, just have something to do?
Yeah.
But
well, I think one other thing that was really telling about that scene was just how blasé everyone was when the zombies were right on the windshield and all around them, and they didn't even jump. And it was just kind of like Rick just, he just rolled down the window, said, just cover your ears.
Cover your ears.
Shot one zombie, and then we cut to a completely clear field.
Well, because we know that they can do it. So we don't need to see them kill every zombie.
But I still find it amazing now more than ever. It just seems like the zombies were extras in this.
Yeah.
Like there was a scene at the end where they were right next to these two zombies that were trapped, and they're just like
whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Like an everyday thing.
Yeah.
All right, so they do end up getting to the hometown, where it all began. The very first episode of season 1, where it all began. We're back in the town, and their first stop is the police station, where all the guns have been taken. Everything's gone, everything's taken, and they kind of start exploring through the town. They spot burnt corpses and paint everywhere. Paint on the wall saying no guilt, you know that. Paint on the ground saying turn around and live. And they come along to, and if you're watching on the YouTube version behind us, this kind of trapped out spot where it looks like somebody's clearly living, and there's a sniper there who yells at them to drop their guns and leave. And once again, Steven's theory, you're not as good of a shot if you're a human, if it's humans that you're shooting at. But this is kind of what's going on. And what did you guys take from the town?
I mean, well, the funny thing is, the first thing I noticed was how quickly Michonne actually got on top of that building. I was like, man, she's like a superhero.
She really is.
That town was really clean.
Yeah.
I thought that was remarkably a very clean town, considering.
Need to make it clear.
Yeah, exactly.
Very clear.
My one question is, it didn't take them that long to get to the town from where they are at the prison. And then it didn't take them that long to get back, obviously, because, I mean, it's still daytime when they get there, and it's daytime when they leave. Wouldn't you think Rick would have a better lay of the land, like from a standpoint of, oh, this is where he was, it's so close. You'd think he'd know all about the prison because he's a sheriff. You'd think he'd know all about Woodbury even because it's in the general vicinity. Like, I think he'd have been through these places like thousands of times before the apocalypse.
I never realized these two locations were so close.
Yeah.
Me either.
I had no clue.
I don't know if just because they left the evening before, like the time hasn't passed, like how much time has passed.
Maybe, in the town they weren't there that long, but the drive, we didn't see how long it was. We just saw them in the car, and then we saw them back in the car.
And even 4 or 5 hour trip in that world is a long way to be. What if you get trapped or something? You're a 4 hour drive away. So I think it was still far enough. I don't know. I mean, it's a good question, but
I think in terms of San Diego is only about a 2 hour drive, and I don't know everything that goes down
right.
But it's still a day trip.
Too.
Yeah, but it's still a day trip.
And I guess we got to throw into the
exactly.
factor of just the way that the world is for him right now and his mental state, that maybe he just is not as clear as he used to be.
Well, I believe in the comic they're pretty far apart, but it still takes a trip.
Yeah.
So after this whole sniper sequence, though, we have Carl saving the day. Carl once again proving his badassery. And as you think Rick's about to get the shot, Carl pops out of nowhere, does it. And who does it turn out to be but Morgan? He's finally back, and we've been waiting for this. And we'll talk a little bit later about, for those of you who read the comics, what we were kind of expecting with his return. But, man, it was great to see him finally back and have a chance to see him. And they bring him up after they shoot him. Turns out he's wearing bulletproof armor. So they bring him up and kind of try and tie him up, go through his tripped out house to make it to his room.
Super tripped out.
And my favorite thing was the welcome mat that has spikes through it. That was genius. That is amazing. And I'm always going to think twice before I step on those.
I know, that's right.
Two things if I can point out about the whole shooting of Morgan that I want to point out is in the first episode ever, Rick got knocked out by Morgan's son. Duane.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting to see vice versa that Rick's son actually knocked out Duane. And then the second thing is this is the first time ever. It's not the first time maybe that that Carl has shot at a human being because of the assault in the prison, but this is the first time he's hit someone and possibly killed him.
Yeah,
so
it was a
this
good
is a
shot.
big thing. It was a good shot. I mean, he killed Shane and Lori when they were zombies.
Yeah.
But other than that, he's never really hit or come close to killing a human.
Yeah.
As far as our recollection, they haven't pointed that out. So I thought that was really a telling scene too, and how it might have affected Rick. You know, he was alive, but still at that moment. So sorry.
No, that's a good point. I'm glad you pointed that out.
Yeah.
And then I don't know about you guys. I'm glad he didn't end up going to the car, but he is not listening to any of the adults in the area because he wasn't even supposed to be there.
Yeah.
Now, it's a good thing he was, and he is way more of a man than he would ever be if he was living a regular child life. But what do you guys think about him defying all the adults?
I mean, but why would he listen to the adults at this point? I mean, he is grown into his own. I mean, they put so much responsibility on him. Why would he? He's just as in tune what the adults are in tune with. So I don't even think he needs to listen to the
He's
adults.
also
at this
becoming a
point.
teenager, and we all know how teenagers are, and gotta rebel against the parents.
He questioned
he's
his
like,
dad
"Yes."
last episode, so obviously this is a guy who's feeling like he's an equal member of the troop and he can do whatever he wants to, no matter what his age.
It's a scary conflict for what Carl's going through right now because he is where they've put so much responsibility on him in the past when Rick's not there that he trusts himself, but at the same time, he is becoming arrogant with himself.
That's why I thought it was a little bit of arrogance. That's a great.
Yeah,
that's
like
exactly what I
the
was
fact that
thinking.
what he did with Michonne later on, which we'll bring up, really, I mean, as much as he wanted to be on his own, it's kind of dumb. Like, why not? You should have someone to have your back. But let's come back to Morgan for a moment and talk about the fact that Rick was exploring and he finds Morgan has a giant stash of weapons. He spots the walkie-talkie, and he finds on the chalkboard tons of writing everywhere, and Duane turned scribbled in big letters, which is going to come back as the giant psychological F-up for Morgan throughout pretty much the whole episode, maybe if we ever see him again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just...
It was his breaking point.
Yeah, his breaking point.
Yeah.
I was kind of curious to see what else was written on the wall. I found that a little bit distracting that I was trying to read everything.
it's
So I was
a
like,
lot.
are there any other clues too?
Who
I
has
was
that job?
fascinated.
Who has that job to write all of those things on
That
the
would be
wall?
fun.
I'm really curious about that.
He kept saying on the wall. Also, we kept seeing clear.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kept seeing clear all the places. So I thought it was I thought it was a map at first. Like he's cleared out these places. Like he was looking for Duane until that last.
One of the
point.
cars in the beginning said clear on it too, and I was thinking the same thing. Like he cleared that car.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was hoping to actually see Duane since it said Duane had turned. I was hoping that somehow he would pop up in this episode.
Yeah.
And
I thought maybe he would too, but we didn't get to see that. But we do have, as you mentioned, the map, Steven. We saw the map, and on it was KCC, which, as we find out, is King Country, and that's what Carl spots and wants to head out.
King County.
Was it King County?
Yeah. King County.
Yeah, it's King County.
King County. Okay, so King County, and Carl wants to head out, and Rick refuses to let him go until Michonne offers to go help out, and Rick allows him to leave so long as Michonne goes with him. So here we have a little breaking point, and we're gonna go ahead and talk specifically about Rick and Morgan, and then we'll come back to everything going on with Michonne and Carl. So Rick is staying with Morgan, and finally Morgan wakes up and just goes at Rick, stabs him, and Rick still refuses to fight back necessarily, other than self-protection, and screaming crazy things. You're wearing a dead man's face.
Yeah.
What did you guys think about the scene?
Well, personally, Morgan had booby-trapped that place perfectly. I mean, from outside to even the knife underneath the cot that he was laying on that they had all taped him to. I mean, the guy was genius with that part.
How much time did this man have to do all that work?
Exactly.
A lot.
Well, clearly a lot of time.
And he assumed someone would come with him when he's in bed, so he'd have that knife there. I was so...
There's 24 hours in a day, and there's a lot of days when you're alone.
Nothing's on TV, so, you know.
Yeah.
Well, because what if a bunch of horde of zombies all of a sudden decided to walk up there and maybe one gets stuck, but the other one's pushed through?
No, it's amazing.
The
So.
scariest thing is that the axe had blood on it. So how many humans were the people who tried to get in that he was burning in that
That's
pile?
exactly what I was wondering. I was like, were those really walkers who got up there? I mean, it could have been before, like, he slowly worked his way out.
Yeah.
So maybe he started with his room and then worked his way, expanded.
It's possible.
Oh, and then with Carl. Oh, Carl, just watch the tripwire.
Yeah.
I noticed that. I was like, what the?
So blasé again.
Just watch the tripwire. I noted that too. I was like, all right, Rick. I guess he trusts Carl enough at that point.
No, but Rick was like that a lot of times. I mean, even when he let Michonne go with Carl, he was like, okay, kind of protect him, but he didn't really. He said, just go right around the corner, but he didn't really watch him. He's like, oh yeah, if you yell, I'll hear you. But it was never about like him really watching Carl. He trusts him 100%.
Notice again in this scene the mirror from the first episode, where after Rick was knocked out, he wakes up in bed with Morgan over him.
Yeah.
And they tried to. They did a good job trying to do as many little parallels as possible. So so Morgan wakes up and Rick's in the room with him. Of course, it's a totally different outcome, but still, it's really interesting how they tried to mirror. Those two are very alike. I think it definitely was. I think Rick seeing all of that. I think I saw a little light in it shine. Like, oh wow, this is what I could become if I let these things get to me.
Well, unlike in the comics where it was the governor that kind of woke him up from being weird, now he's seeing in here, which I actually kind of like it, somebody who is more like him.
Yeah.
That's the one that's hopefully going to get him to get back to normal. Looking at this like, this could be me, because what if Lori would have turned into a zombie, or if Carl did, or
and what you have to think about too is, I mean, in that situation, if Rick had woken up and found out that Lori and Carl had been dead, would he have wanted what Morgan wanted, which was to be dead? Morgan was begging Rick to kill him. So you have to wonder if, on the flip side, if that was what Rick had found out, if his immediate instinct would have been, I'm done. And the dynamic Uno on the chat points out that it's been approximately 11 months since Rick left King County the first time. So it's kind of a good little interesting tidbit there. Thanks, King County.
That guy had a lot of grenades.
A
So
lot.
please tell me they took those grenades. That's what I've been wondering the
hope
whole
so.
episode.
I hope they're in that Hyundai.
And I liked when Morgan pointed out, like, he was quoting the Bible indirectly with the meek shall inherit the earth, talking about we're the weak ones, we're the ones who hold up because we're not strong like you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we get a lot of things with Morgan in this exact scene where we find out that Morgan had tried to use the walkie-talkie, which we'd been wondering, but it was a little bit too late. It was after Rick had stopped, and we find out the real story about what happened with the fact that he couldn't handle seeing his wife turn, and then he just couldn't come to get himself to kill his wife, and it ended up probably the most horrifying thing you'd have to see is watching his wife turn their son right in front of his eyes, because his son couldn't kill his own mother.
Yeah.
So that was the horrifying chain of events that he had to go through and witness, and why Morgan is just completely nuts.
Yeah. When we last left Morgan in the first season, I think that was he was on the second floor window,
and he had
the crosshairs.
He
He had the crosshairs right on his wife. So this answers everything from what happened from that moment.
I thought they showed
Well, I
that
think
he
you
didn't
show
shoot
him,
her.
like-
He pulled back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you see him pull back and just like kind of in pain.
Yeah.
Just he can't do it. And I mean, I can't relate to that, but I can't even imagine what that would be like, because I mean, I'm not married, I don't have a child, but I even guess still I can't imagine how horrible that must be.
Yeah. Intense. I can't even imagine either. It just seems like it'd be super intense.
And because he couldn't shoot his wife, his son suffered. So
Jason21676 on the chat had kind of a fun question, or just thought, was that it would have been interesting to see how Morgan's son, Duane, would have interacted with Carl, kind of someone his own age.
Yeah.
How would they have interacted together? And you have to wonder, because Carl doesn't have anyone his own age. He has Beth as being the closest person, but
It's
how
still
would
different.
they? Yeah, and just kind of someone who's gone through the same chain of events, just in a parallel spot.
Yeah.
How they would have interacted.
well, judging from the way Morgan treated Duane in comparison to the way Rick's had to grow up, I think they're very similar kids, but I think it would have been a very different experience.
It's funny though, like how you see Carl right now in the show, because, and this is a comic reference I'm going to make that shouldn't spoil anything. In the comics at this point, he still wants to play all the time, and he wants to have toys. He wants to play with the person in the comics who's there that's his age, and it's just totally different. He still is a kid in the comics. He still wants to do those things, whereas here it's completely different. He really is an adult. He's completely grown up.
Yeah.
Well, and we don't know how long ago Duane was turned, but just in terms of the relation to Carl, Carl had to shoot his mother, who wasn't even a zombie about to eat him.
Yeah.
And Duane couldn't.
Exactly. Good point.
So we then get from Duane the quote, that's good people, they always die. Bad people die too. Weak people inherited this earth. So I thought that was kind of a interesting line coming from him.
He calls himself weak, which I thought was odd. I mean, that man seems to be the most, I mean, crazy as he is, he seems to really
But
be
it's
strong.
all because he was too weak to kill his wife.
Yes.
And then that was what led to everything. So to him, he's the weakest person for not being able to do what he needed to do.
Exactly, yeah.
So Rick, after this, wants Morgan to come back with him, thinks it'll help, and Morgan refuses to. He points out that Rick wants all these guns. Clearly, it's not that safe, because if you want something good, someone's going to take it. And there's got to be this reason that Rick wants everything. And Morgan's point is that he doesn't want to live through all the pain again. He just can't handle that. He's already lost everything important to him right in front of his eyes. He can't live through that again. And then he says, I have to clear. The big quote of the episode. What did you guys take away from that?
I still think he should have gone. Just personally watching that, I could see where he doesn't want to, but ultimately it's better to be with people than by yourself, no matter what the consequence ends up being. And I liked actually Rick's response to that is, we're gonna win. There wasn't any sort of doubt. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be casualties because it's The Walking Dead, and that's what's going to end. It's a fight. It's a war, if you will. But I still think it would have been a lot better if he would have been there. Who knows? Maybe he'll still show up. If, you know, he said there's a prison, and maybe he'll look for them, and maybe not. But I think it would have been really healthy for him to have gone with Rick. Because they found each other again.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you. I mean, I think that he should have gone with them, but also I felt like just Morgan was just so defeated at that point. I mean, he's just mentally defeated. So even the part where they were having the conversation about the walkie-talkies, and he had mentioned that, you know, Rick gave him the walkie-talkies, and they were supposed to connect, I think, at dawn or something, and Morgan just kept bringing up that point, like, I contacted you, you weren't there, and I just felt like he was so defeated that he may have been a hindrance to Rick's camp at that point, just because he was so defeated.
Yeah. Well, he said he had to clear, and I took that as he still feels guilty about what happened with Duane.
Yeah.
And this is his way of punishing himself, his penance.
Yeah.
That he has to clear with himself. Although he used clear in a different way earlier in the episode. We were talking about that when he was fighting Rick, and he said, "You don't clear, man. You just turn and then you die." So, I guess the word clear. It's really ambiguous. The title.
I think it could mean a lot of things.
Yeah,
and
which is great.
I think it could be like clearing your soul, clearing the walkers in the area, which is part of, I think, to him, the same thing. And something I think, too, I agree with you, Kristin, that I think he should go with the group. That's what he should do. It's not what he does. And Pat was asking us on the chat if we think Morgan stayed behind, and I think it's pretty clear that he did. But I think he should have gone with the group, because I know for myself, personally, if I'm in a horrible headspace, like, say, I'm going through a bad breakup or something like that, if I'm by myself, I just make it worse.
Yeah.
Because in my head, I just am in such a negative space that I'm just going to keep on building and building on top of that. And I kind of need to be around people who are going to bring some other light to it, to make me forget about it, or to just bring some positivity. And we've seen with all the traps and every horrible thing he has set up that he's in a really negative space. So maybe he needs something else there.
Well, and quite frankly, I think, too, for him, he thinks he let his son die, basically. Why not take this opportunity to save other people or help save other people?
Or even Carl, because you saw him connect with Carl at the end. You could see that he saw his own son in Carl. So that would have been that might be a perfect way of getting him back in.
Exactly.
Seeing someone similar to Carl and maybe teaching him as well not to make the same mistakes he did.
Well, I want to throw something out there, because I didn't know if you guys were going to mention it or not, so I wanted to throw it out there. The powerful line is, I have to clear. But I thought there was a line right before that was more powerful and really put things in perspective for what's going on with Rick, is when Rick says, you have to beat this, you have to get over it, you have to. Because he's not convincing Morgan, he's convincing himself. Because he's going down such a dark path from what he's experienced, and if Morgan can't come out of this, who is the person who is so strong to Rick, because he's the one who first introduced them to what's going on, how the hell is Rick going to get over it?
Right.
I think ultimately clear really stands for Rick. I think Rick comes out of that whole experience a lot clear-minded. So that's what I ended up taking out of that whole ending, that he actually cleared his own soul, seeing what he could have become. Again, comparing himself to Morgan.
So we have Liz on the chat mentioning that, just back to the whole should they have brought Morgan thing. Liz says, I thought other people would be good for Morgan, but Morgan might not have been good for other people.
Right, that's what I
Which
was
is kind of a
yeah.
thing, because Morgan is pretty much insane at this point, so that he would kind of bring the group down. But guys, before we do move on to Michonne and Carl's, what they've been up to, I do want to mention, guys, that we do provide this show for you guys, and we love your support in any way possible, whether that be going on iTunes, go on YouTube, and just please rate, please comment, either positive or negative. It doesn't matter. We just want to hear what you guys think, so we know how we can make this show better for you guys. And also, come join us on the live chat. That's 9 p.m. Pacific time, 12 in the a.m. Eastern time. You've heard us talking to people on the chat, bring up their comments. So really, if you guys come on the chat, we will bring you. We'll try to include you on the show. So definitely come on and hang out with us and everyone else on the chat who's talking amongst themselves. So come on over. All right, so let's on that positive note, let's talk about Carl and Michonne. Carl's starting out by trying to trick Michonne into leaving him alone by going, "Oh, there's a walker over there. Maybe you should take care of it."
Yeah.
By the way, sorry, Rick's a badass. He took a knife right to his shoulder and just shrugged it off.
And then bandaged it. Yeah.
Badass right there. Sorry.
No, I was kind of thinking, like, that's it. He's just, all right.
Get some shirtless action for the ladies, because you guys got Andrea's butt the other, a couple episodes
We did get that
ago.
last week.
Yeah, we did. We got that.
Well, you had shirtless David Morrissey, right?
Oh.
No, but he was covered though, wasn't he?
Well, I think
the
last
covers.
season he didn't have a shirt on at one point.
We're gonna
So
pay better
I
attention.
think you're just trying to wait for Derriol. That's all it is.
That's
You're
what
waiting
she
for
wants.
the Derriol
That's
call.
what she wants.
Wasn't his back enough for you? Come on.
So
you always need more. No, I'm just kidding.
you got a hug from him, okay?
I did. You guys should watch that. It's pretty awesome. I was excited.
All right, so going back to Carl, though. So Carl tries to trick Michonne away, and Michonne comes back, and they have a bunch of different exchanges where Carl just doesn't want any help. He's trying to prove that this is important to him. He doesn't trust Michonne. He just needs to do this for himself, and Michonne refuses to let him. And I felt like it's kind of that whole thing with Andrea almost, where Michonne really will help people who are helpless. That's her character.
Yeah.
Because you see that with Andrea, and then again she's doing it with Carl. And I mean, I saw it within her character, and I kind of liked a lot of the exchanges that they had throughout. What did you guys take away from that?
Well, I mean, from the very beginning, when Carl was talking with Rick on the phone, on the phone, in the car. Where's my mind at all of a sudden? He's on the phone.
Dad, what's up?
Hey, Dad, what's up? When the car was stopped and they were talking, he didn't trust Michonne. He was the one telling his dad, like, why are we taking Michonne with us? What's going on here? So he's coming from a place where he doesn't trust her at all.
Yeah.
He also spews out exactly what Rick had told him. So again, I mean, even though I'm saying that he's going through the stage of being rebellious, he is taking in everything his dad says. And he literally verbatim pretty much tells Michonne exactly what Rick had told him at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah. But that being said, this is kind of like his walkabout. This is his trial as a man, to do something good and to do something on his own. This is the first time he's had an option to get the keys to the car, so to speak, and take a little trip. So.
And I kind of wonder if he didn't want her there because it was a family, because we didn't know what he was going to get until we get in there. And I think maybe he wanted to do that not only to show he was a man, but because it was so personal. It was family related. And who is this girl with the samurai sword?
We've heard other members of the prisoner talking about each other as family, but Michonne's still been on the outside looking in.
Until now.
Yeah.
What I liked about the episode, though, is that it was like the first time we actually got to see a little bit more of who Michonne was as a person.
Yeah.
And I felt more connected to her tonight. I loved her. I've loved her from all the episodes, but tonight I felt like I really got a chance to know who she was. I mean, she even referenced her boyfriend tonight.
Yeah.
Which it was like a sneak preview of who she really is. You know.
Yeah, I thought that was a great point for her, where she's actually starting to open up to us a little bit. And you have to wonder, did she ever really tell Andrea that? Because Andrea mentions that she doesn't know anything about Michonne. So maybe she actually can relate to Rick, and that's why, because of that we'll get later on. And we could talk about it more.
Well, I tend to think also she's opening up too, because she saw by not doing that potentially with Andrea, that friendship, although it's not broken, they split apart. And I think she's seeing this group and trying not to make those same mistakes as well, and seeing how close they are. And I think she wants to be part of the family.
That's what I was going to say. She wants to be part of the group.
Yeah, exactly. So she doesn't have to talk to her dead boyfriend anymore.
We also can see how intelligent she is, because with Carl, Of course, he's turning the knob because he just looked in, sees one zombie, turns the knob, and she stops him. She develops the plan. Let's slide these skateboards we see earlier with the animals on them. And there's like 12 walkers in this place that Carl didn't even know about.
That was weird editing, though. Did you guys feel that too? Because all of a sudden she pushes his hand away, and then they're not even anywhere close to there, and I think we were all like, "What?"
Yeah, I think we did say that comment.
Can I just make a shout out for? It was really a smart idea of using the mice the way they used in this episode as
Shout out to
walker
the mice.
bait.
Just general base.
That was just I mean, last week we were talking about the zombies being used as weapons, but it was really interesting to see this new contraption, this new way of actually trying to get zombies to lure zombies.
And this whole scene that we had too, I like this scene for. I mean, the sake of we finally get, there's been so much human against human this entire season that it was nice to get kind of a call back to the walkers being the thing that everyone's afraid of, that's the issue, because when Carl and Michonne get in there and Carl's grabbing the family portrait, which is what he was going there to get, we finally get this moment where once again walkers are a threat. And even though they do get away pretty quickly with Michonne's badassery with her samurai blade, with some awesome kills, it was nice to see kind of once again the walkers being something more than just an aside.
Yeah.
They kind of finally came to the front again.
Yeah. Well, yeah, for sure. And go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, well, in terms of the photo, did they end up leaving the photo behind when they switched to the farm and all that? Because I remember in season 1, Rick said, I know they're not dead because all the photographs are gone. So they had a bunch of them. Did they somehow lose them along the way? That wasn't a big point for us to...
I was wondering the same thing because Rick had it in his wallet, I believe, and Lori had an entire album.
Yeah.
Well, they did have to run out of the farm really fast at the end of season 2.
I wonder if that's maybe when they lost it. Or they had them, I don't know if they had them in the cars, but that was something I was thinking about.
Well, maybe they'll catch up with the people from Cold Storage, the web series, and go to the storage locker where all of those photos are.
There we go.
Nice way to cross some shows together.
There are actually some crossovers,
together.
and we'll start crossing over the game that they made, and then we'll actually have more crossovers.
We'll have flashbacks to 1960s Manhattan.
Exactly.
Well, Robert Kirkman said at the PaleyFest that he doesn't want everything to cross over because then it gets to be too predictable, and he's trying a little bit more to separate all the different stories. So if you're doing the video game, it's a little bit different than the television show, which is a little bit different than the comics.
Well, it's such a big world. So many things you can add to it.
Well, at this point, the show is getting even more and more away from the comics. Then I feel like every season has gone further and further away from the comics. But talking more about Michonne and Carl, they do get out, and Michonne tells Carl, no more BS. Wait for me here. Finally lays down the law. And somehow her sneakiness of magically appearing above the building pays off. She comes out with the photo and an ugly cat body cat thing. And it was nice to have a little bit of humor, like kind of just that little break, which without Axel, I feel like we were kind of wondering if there was going to be any of that because he was the character to bring that light side. So Michonne brings that, which was nice.
Yeah.
How badass was that too? Carl just leaning back with all these zombies on the windows
on the door
again. Another like blasé move, kind of like he's just pounding by the door.
Well, I love that moment too because I know that there's been a back and forth with Michonne, but I almost was getting to the point of like how much does she have to prove to them? Like when will they start to realize that she is really part of the group? You know what I mean? And today I felt like finally there should not be any more question. Carl trusts her. I think we know Rick trusts her now. Towards the end where we find out it was nice to finally get that almost like what's the word I want to use
camaraderie.
Yes, the camaraderie that she is part of the group and that she is definitely part of their team.
Then I also find it weird when she went back in there that we didn't hear anything about her because he dropped the picture pretty close to the door. I don't see any sort of movement. I was trying to pay a little bit of attention because I was waiting for like a wah or something or a little blood splattered on there. There was nothing.
She's just a ninja.
Yeah,
she's a ninja.
She's a ninja samurai. She's both.
She was quick.
Best of both worlds.
Yeah,
Amazing.
she was just showing off. I love that when she was eating the chips, she's like, well, the mat said welcome.
Yeah, that was great. We saw the humor in her.
She really brought like a whole bunch of humor to the episode. And it is nice that finally she's getting accepted into the group after she's done a lot for them. So it's nice to see that. It's really Carl bringing it out, like saying, okay, I trust her now. Yeah. But after this scene, we get Michonne and Carl reuniting with Rick. and they've now grabbed the crib, which is what Carl was saying that he wanted, but it was a good idea to get a crib for Judith. So they got in the crib now, and we see Morgan strapping a walker down to, as we find out later, go burn him, because we'd seen as we were going through the town all these burnt corpses. So he's strapping a walker down for that sake and maybe clearing it.
Yeah.
Maybe clearing it.
Keep it clear.
And Carl apologizes to Morgan and kind of to clear the air. And Morgan comes over to him and says, "Hey, son, don't ever be sorry." How do you think this will factor into Carl's character?
I don't know. I think his mom's words will probably go with him a little bit more, and that's why he still apologizes, is that if it feels wrong, don't do it. And I think now knowing who this guy was, he felt like it was bad and he wanted to apologize for it. But I think it is something he already doesn't apologize for half of the stuff he does.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like actually that message to Carl from Morgan was, you know what, there's no time for apologies anymore. Like, it's no need to have any remorse for anything in the future. At this stage in life, you just have to just move forward and go. Like, there's no need to even apologize for anything.
Yeah,
you know?
I agree with that. I think that interaction ultimately was more for Morgan than for Rick, but because Rick, I don't think knew Morgan's story.
Right.
I mean, Carl didn't know Morgan's story like Rick did.
Right.
So I really think that if anything, it just emphasized, hey man, you shot me.
Yeah.
It's that's what you have to do in this world now.
This is the world we live in now.
Yeah.
There's no need to apologize. You don't even need to take that moment to apologize.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, someone's shooting at you, you shoot back. It should be understandable, you think. But Carl, after this, and what we were talking about, Carl has warmed up to Michonne. And he tells Rick that Michonne's good. We can trust her. And again, we were kind of talking about Michonne. This is kind of her episode, really, to come out and really clear the air. And finally... Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Clear. What do you know? It's just in my head.
Take a drink.
It's a drinking game.
It's not the drinking game for tonight's episode. So kind of a good episode for Michonne to find out a lot more about her character. And we get her admitting she realizes Rick's seeing people and admitting that she talked to her dead boyfriend. So again, finally nice to hear from her something, a little insight about her character and kind of her own personal demons.
Yeah.
And that's something they kept from the comics too, because she did talk to her dead boyfriend in the comics.
Yeah, well, in the comics, one of the two zombies that she had was her boyfriend.
Yeah.
That she was carrying around with her. But what's interesting too is that Rick only admitted that he sees dead people to Herschel. So she figured it out, so to speak. Maybe everyone else has figured it out by now, but she's the only other person who's confronted Rick and talked to him about it.
Well, she saw him when he was in the.
And on the beginning of the other episode. Yeah, that's right.
And I guess since she went through it, she kind of understands too. She understands. And we get them driving away, and the sign "Away with you," as they're leaving, seeing the bodies get burnt, and they see the hitchhiker. He's now dead. Yeah. Never see his face again. I think his head was completely bloodied up.
I think so.
Yeah, there were parts.
It was like body parts.
And they see the backpack. Stop, take the backpack, head out. Did you guys get the name of the song?
No, I was trying to pull it up. I couldn't get it. But here's an interesting thing. Remember when I said in the beginning of the show that when they first drove by the hitchhiker, Carl looked back? After they passed the backpack, before they went in reverse, Rick was the one that looked back. So I thought that was really, really telling that Carl seemed to be the most human out of the three, I think, going in. And that all of a sudden Rick now is looking back, although for maybe different reasons, just to pick, nice knapsack, let me get that. But still, I thought it was it was the same exact shot. Yeah, exactly. So.
And I think there probably was some guilt in there. I mean, there had to be, you know. I don't care how inhuman you are, he had to probably have a moment where he was like, you know what, that dude got killed because we didn't pick him up, you know? I mean, there had to be a moment of that. So, I don't know.
I think that's a good point. And something we should mention before we move on is that this is an episode where this was the only characters we saw. Michonne, Carl, Rick, and Morgan. None of the other characters, none of the Woodbury stuff, nothing. So, again, kind of a slowdown to really get to know the characters. And I liked it. I thought it was a nice change of pace.
Yeah.
It was weird, though, if I remember correctly, because I was talking about this with Megan when we saw the first 10 minutes of it. It said guest starring. Melissa McBride, and then it also, I think it said Herschel's, the actor's name on there as well, and we didn't see them at all.
I think that's something they have to do for the
So-
credits as actors. I think they always
Even-
have to put them in because
Well,
they're
I know
they're
for the
regulars.
opening ones, but I thought it was just funny that they put guest starring,
Yeah.
and they've been in there for a while.
Yeah.
But
Mm.
I thought so. I didn't know if they put it guest starring because it was going to be this show mostly on them, but maybe they came back in with the crib or something.
What cracks me up about that always is that Melissa McBride has been around since episode
Yeah.
3,
Yeah.
and people who have been on the title credits like John Barenthal and
And they're
yeah,
gone.
they're gone.
Yeah.
Like they're featured on there, and she's still like, oh, and starring also. By the way, Melissa
Yeah.
McBride's also in this. I always think that's funny.
I have a question. Do you guys think that Morgan's going to appear in the future episodes?
I hope so.
Yeah, I think so. I think we'll see him again.
Definitely.
I feel like he will.
Well, I mean, they're not going to just leave those guns there. If they need guns ever again, I'm sure that's where they're going to go.
That's true.
That hitchhiker, though, like, I think he's just an idiot, though, because he was yelling after them. He obviously didn't know how to survive in the zombie world because he's got this bright orange thing. He's doesn't have a weapon, apparently, because he dies.
Well, do colors really matter to zombies?
Are they
It seems like
colorblind?
smell is the thing that they're attracted to over
You
color.
never know.
Smell and noise.
Smell it. Yeah,
Smell
smell
and
noise.
Noise,
And
yeah.
he
And he
was
was making a
kinda
lot of
noisy,
noise.
yeah.
No.
But I mean, this might have seemed like just one chance to him. And something we forgot to point out was that sign that they saw Aaron, we try for Stone Mountain. They find Aaron as a
Oh,
walker.
yeah.
She's not
Aaron, she had
looking
the
so
bracelet
hot.
on. She had
Yeah.
the bracelet. Yeah.
That was cool.
So, kind of a callback there. But before we move on to some news and gossip, some comparisons, let's mention that we appreciate your support again in any way possible. If you guys could go to the AfterBuzz TV store, click on the top left of AfterBuzzTV.com. There's a link for the store. You can buy some AfterBuzz TV awesome apparel. Or if you guys want to buy anything, I know Tomb Raider's about to come out for you gamers out there. Go to Amazon.com. Just click on our link, AfterBuzz TV. There's a top right. There's a link to Amazon. Click on it. Buy anything you could want, be it Tomb Raider, some Walking Dead gear.
Yeah.
And you don't have to pay any extra fee. It just helps support us. So if you guys could do that, we'd really appreciate that. And another thing is Serial Buddies is a movie coming out this Friday from our own Maria Menounos. And if you guys are fans of things slightly off, like Walking Dead, a little bit off-kilter, it's an off-kilter comedy about serial killers, a buddy comedy about serial killers. It's coming out this Friday, so guys, make sure you check that out. So let's jump on talking about the comics a little bit, some comic comparisons. So guys, if you don't want to hear anything about the comics, tune out for maybe like 3 minutes.
Earmuffs.
Yeah.
But we will not spoil anything from future episodes. We're just going to talk a little bit about what some differences in the comics that we've been seeing. So one big thing is kind of Morgan's character himself. He is a lot more insane we're seeing in the show than we see in the comics.
Yeah.
They kind of ramped it up.
Well, insane in the fact that he's attacking Rick and
Stabbing
stabbing him and attacking him. But in the comic, at least, Rick goes back on purpose to look for Morgan, and same result. Duane is passed. He's turned. But what was interesting in the comic, at least, was that Morgan kept Duane kind of like the governor kept Penny, in chains and was feeding him.
Well, we still don't know. That still could have happened, though. It's still possible.
It's possible it could have happened, and then he eventually died or something. I don't know, because I feel like we would have seen him maybe, but it would have been really interesting if that happened. But he does turn to be a little off.
Yeah.
I don't want to say as crazy as he was in this episode, but it does turn out to be a little off. But Morgan's a favorite. I think people really, even in the comic when he came back, I think a lot of people were really looking forward to seeing him again because he made such an impact on the first issue.
First season.
Yeah.
Wearing
and
a
the first
dead
season.
man's face.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
wow. Yeah, totally.
He's not crazy. He's dangerous.
Well, I think
Yes, as
yeah.
Michonne said.
I think it's also just episode 1 too, where it's just like that whole idea of this is the one person that Rick related to, and just we kept thinking because there were so many episodes where Rick was talking on the walkie-talkie, trying to make contact to him. It always makes you wonder, well, what did happen to him?
Yeah.
And it kind of just dropped off. But in the back of your head, you're still wondering, well, what happened to that guy who Rick was trying to make contact with through multiple episodes of the show, multiple parts of the comic. So I think that's why people were so drawn to him. Whereas there's characters in the show who we had some guests on who weren't as memorable just because after they left, you kind of just forgot about them. There weren't as many callbacks to them.
Yeah.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Out of
Out of
go.
sight, out of
Out of
mind.
sight, out of
They
mind.
are cleared.
Yes.
Cleared.
Oh, before you get into news, I want to say something. But
Go ahead.
oh, okay. What we forgot to mention was the one bullet that was left in the police station, and the significance of that. In that It's the one thing that Morgan left at the police station. Michonne's the one who gives it to Rick, and then that's his last bullet he's about to shoot Morgan in the head with, and Carl knocks him down.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like ironic that the last thing he leaves in the police station is the one thing that might end up killing him.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And we mentioned earlier with Michonne's character that kind of in the comics we've found out about her dead boyfriends, and now this is finally where it's revealed in the show. So we're getting some of her character, which is the same as in the comics. We're getting it revealed in the show, and a comic comparison I brought up earlier was that Carl in the comics at this point is still much more of a child. He still wants to play with his friends. Sophia's still alive in the comics.
They have a little relationship.
Yeah, they have a little bit of a relationship, and they always want to play together, and not so at all in the show. That's completely a gone element. So specifically comic stuff for this episode, and when we go on, we can talk about other episodes.
I will say I'm really glad also with this whole thing with Michonne, because she had become such a trusted member of the party, of the of the group in the comics. So now that we finally cleared all this, I have to use the word clear again. Now that we've cleared all of this, now we can at least stop getting it. There you go, Glug. Now we can get down to her being part of this whole attack on Woodbury, and her being more trusted, and her interacting with the group more. Maybe not so much with Merle, but everybody else at least in the group a lot more. So
and one of my favorite moments was actually when she brought the picture back to him, and he to Carl, and he mentioned the fact that he wanted Judith to have a memory of who her mom was when she gets older. So that was like one of my favorite touching moments of the entire show.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's jump on some news and gossip. Not much of a transition there.
It works.
It works.
So we had PaleyFest just happen, and our very own Christon Carole was there.
They're gonna start to recognize me, maybe why is this fan at all these events? It was great. I can't spoiler anything really because they are so tight-lipped. You could tell it was really hard, especially for Andrew Lincoln, to not say anything. I think they were starting to get to him, but everybody else, we saw the first 10 minutes, which was amazing to see that, and of course they ended when Carl shot somebody, and we're like, what? Play more. But it was really great, and they're fantastic with the fans. If you ever get the opportunity to see any of the Walking Dead people, and you want an autograph or a picture, they stayed and talked to everybody, and my boyfriend was laughing because I was climbing seats in heels. So that's how you have to deal with big crowds like that. But I'm trying to think if I had any real spoilers. They just talk about
any scoop.
Well, for people who haven't been to PaleyFest, what is it like? Because
Yeah.
I live in LA. I haven't been to PaleyFest. I'm sure a lot of our listeners haven't been to, don't even live in LA.
It's fantastic. They do about 2 or 3 weeks worth of, you get to see everybody from your favorite TV shows. So half of the cast of Walking Dead was there with some of the executive producers trying to give some inside scoop, but a lot of it was just, you see a lot of character development kind of stuff. This is what they're dealing with, and they're going to keep dealing with that, and there wasn't a lot that way. But what they'll do is they'll usually show an episode, and Walking Dead is so big though, and so spoilery, it would go on the internet in 2 seconds that they don't show the whole thing there. And then we got a special behind the scenes look at the last episode where Andrea, I thought it was very cool how she killed the zombie to bring that over to the prison to meet everybody, and how it's the back and forth between the actual person who was actually a good friend of Greg's, Nicotera, if I'm saying that correctly, and how he brings in people, and that he was actually a zombie that Andrea shot over at Woodbury as well. And it was cool to see all the behind the scenes on how they do that back and forth, and how they really try to keep it mostly real with some CGI put in there. But yeah, you can see to get back to that, fans can ask questions in person, so there were some very interesting questions from fans. And afterwards, a lot of the stars
Who would win in a fight?
There was do you ever dream about zombies? That was the one
That's
they ended
funny.
on. He's like, I dream about zombies. Not that I should talk, because I told my boyfriend the other night that I'm glad he survived the zombie apocalypse in my sleep. So
Was there any talk about the Walking Dead movie that they're allegedly doing?
no, nobody asked anything about that.
Okay.
I didn't hear anything like that. And at the end, it was just a lot of shout outs. People who ask questions are like, I love you, Derriol. And that wasn't me. I didn't ask questions.
Sure.
And at the end, all the actors and producers and stuff, they stay and they sign autographs and take pictures. And a lot of them, the ones that I've gone to, I went to True Blood and Once Upon a Time, they stayed for a long time, most of the cast.
But for Walking Dead, a lot of them weren't there. this time.
No, actually, Chandler Riggs, who plays Carl, he couldn't be there because he's in school now. Because I even attempted to get him on the show, and his publicist was super sweet with her email back, like, "I hope you understand. We're trying to get him to be a real kid.
He doesn't need an education.
How dare you have
He's
a
such a smart
childhood?"
kid. He's such a smart kid already. He doesn't need school
yeah.
anymore. Come
Yeah,
on.
he does. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He should be on more staff.
Did
No,
the
just
new
kidding.
showrunner talk at all? Scott Gimple.
Not too much. They kept pretty quiet. Mostly it was Robert Kirkman saying stuff. So.
Oh yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Can you
And
imagine?
Gail,
Oh,
every so often, Gail Ann Hurd would chime in.
Yeah.
But and a lot of the questions were towards Andrew Lincoln.
Yeah.
So,
Of course.
yeah.
can you imagine how it would be like to be Carl, like the actor Carl, like growing up, like, oh, like yeah, I was the guy.
He's the next
But
Will
you also have
Wheaton.
to think,
No,
like,
right?
He's gonna be the next Will Wheaton. That's what
Don't
he's gonna
say
turn
that.
into.
That's terrible. That is terrible.
Well,
He doesn't have the sweater.
Not to Will. Oh yeah. I guess that's true.
One thing for Carl though, a lot of child actors, their shows, kids their age can watch. Carl, I can't imagine a lot of kids in his age group, their
Are
parents letting him
watching
watch
this show.
it.
Yeah, I agree.
So maybe he will have a little bit more of a normal childhood, maybe. We'll see. But let's jump on some comments from you guys who are watching. So on iTunes, we had Gypsy1990, Shazer Garden, Wit 2020, and V-Dubs the Fox. I love foxes, so you got a great name. Shazer Garden mentioned that they like the comic book comparisons, and they were kind of sad we haven't been doing as many. So we're trying to put some in here and there because people don't like them, people do like them. So let us know if you like us, just kind of at least having a section at the end so you can tune out if you don't want to hear it. We really try not to have any spoilers, and the show's so different now from the comics.
Yeah.
It's honestly pretty hard to spoil the show because a lot of things are surprising to us having read the comics.
Can I just say that if we're 3 seasons in, and if you're a fan of the show and you really are like, don't tell me any spoilers from the comic book, go get the comic book already. Start reading it because there's a lot of good
But
stuff
maybe if
there.
you're such a big fan of the show, you want to find out from the show because I love Game of Thrones and I read the books.
Yeah.
But I like the show so much that sometimes I'm like, I kind of want to just watch the
It's
show.
like me with
I
True
do
Blood
that.
too. I do it with True
I
Blood.
get not going
Yeah.
too far ahead in the comics,
Yeah.
but I feel like we can talk a lot more freely about stuff in the past. There's stuff that we know that's not going to happen because the character
Right.
came and died or something in the books or something like that.
I
so.
probably, honestly, if I wasn't on the podcast, I would not read the comics because I wouldn't want any potential spoilers. Now, knowing that I've read the comics and they try to keep it separate, I might go back to it because of it. But I'm one of those, I like watching
Yeah.
more than reading it for that. Like, I don't read any of the True Blood, but I couldn't be a bigger True Blood,
Well, I
fan.
get it. Like in the case of like Harry Potter, for example, where they for a couple of those movies they were so spot on with the book. It kind of sucks, when you read a book first.
I heard Game of Thrones is like that too, so I
of
won't
Thrones
read
will be
those
like that
books
too.
until maybe the series is over. But
But this does deviate quite a bit, so I feel like you can still have an open mind when you're watching the show.
Yeah, I like to see just the difference of how it follows the book and with the show, like the difference of the two. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so on YouTube, we had D Schiamni, Miss Gigi Gengen, Jackhammer23, Joe Beard, and Joe Beard commented, "Hey guys, still loving the show. Just wondering, do you guys think the governor's fuel to kill everyone in the prison will die down or continue to grow if and when Tyrese tells him about the baby Judith? I think that if anything, he would use Judith to torture Rick.
I agree.
Because also,
Ooh,
especially
gonna-
since his kid died.
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it's gonna grow.
Yeah.
He'll
gonna
take
continue to get
Judith
worse.
as his own.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I responded to that one myself. I just was like, I couldn't. It was such a good question. I couldn't.
You
help
did
but
respond to it.
I can't remember. I can't remember exactly what I said. I mean, look, the governor. I think they're making the governor out to be not as bad as in the comic. He does seem to have a little bit more of a soul, a little bit more of a responsibility. I hate to say that after what happened last week,
Yeah.
but he does have a little bit of that. That being said, I think his thirst for vengeance is still a little high. If anything, he'll just keep the baby for himself and maybe replace what he lost,
Yeah.
but
you-
still kill everybody
Penny
else.
2.0.
Yeah.
Do you think it'd be too dark for TV to have the baby become a zombie?
I think it'd be awesome.
I would
don't
love.
think
I actually would love it if they did it,
I'm a
but they
horrible
probably
person, I
wouldn't.
guess. I
They
think it would be
probably wouldn't.
awesome.
Yeah, me too.
I don't think they would.
They'd have another baby. Maybe the Mexican family or the Latino family.
Whoa! At least you're saying it. I can't say that.
Well, I'm Latino. I'm Latino, so I can say. I think, yeah, the Latino family baby, maybe or something. No, I'm just trying to think of what other babies that we've seen. Maybe that family will come back. I don't know.
I don't know if they'd go that route. I mean, I think that'd be interesting, but
Well, yeah, not with Judith apparently, but
No.
I mean, even seeing it, because I mean, of course, in the first season we have Rick shoots the little girl, and that was like a big uproar. So I'm sure they're trying to think of the next big thing that's going to be like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
so you know, just to defend myself, Merle did say it was a Mexican family. Not saying that he's right. That's why I
you
referred
just
to his
defended
comment.
Merle.
I kind of did.
Yeah. How the heck did that happen?
I'm gonna stay quiet.
I'm gonna mute you now.
Mute
Nick.
me.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so also commenting, Belial024 commented the way, and I want to talk about this because a lot of people like this comment on the who are watching our YouTube. The way Tyrese and his group flip so fast and were willing to kill the other group proves how the writers on this show continue to write stupid characters and ridiculous twists. What do you guys think about that? Because a lot of people seem to agree with him on the YouTube.
I don't think he's flipped. I know people. We were talking about this last week. I think Tyrese is still coming from a different place than Ben and Alan. Ben and Alan flipped.
Ben and Alan flipped.
They flipped.
Yeah.
Tyrese still has a soul. I still feel like he has a soul.
I don't think Ben and Alan flipped. I didn't think they were that great to begin with.
Right. They never.
That's true.
In the beginning.
Well, they were against the group from the beginning.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
And as far as Tyrese is concerned, I think all he cares about is survival at this point. And to him, it's like, the only way I can have a warm bed and somewhere to sleep and not have to be on the run all the time is if I help this group out. And I think he's looking at a logistical standpoint as opposed to flipping.
And let's call it what it is. Rick did not have open arms for him where the governor did. Yeah. You know. So I mean, you're gonna go to the place where you feel welcome, and he was not welcome in Rick's camp.
I think we're gonna see him though, even though he may think that he could do it. I think we're gonna see him have a huge struggle when the time comes that he's not going to be able to, because there were other good people there. So even though he may have a slight problem with Rick waving his gun around at what he perceives as him, I think he is going to kind of see the ruthlessness of the governor a little bit later and how it's not right, and with the baby and all the other people who were nice to him.
He doesn't see what the governor's really trying to do.
No.
From what he's been told, he's seen Rick waving a gun around. He's seen them with all machine guns, and they've heard that they attacked Woodbury. He doesn't know that the governor's going in there to kill everyone. He probably thinks it's going to be a tactical insertion, take out the guns, and then convert the people into the town.
This is not an either-or situation. He's not picking sides. He went from one camp where he wasn't accepted to the next camp, and he wants to be accepted.
And he hasn't been at that camp long enough to know the manipulation that the governor proposes.
Yeah.
Right. Like, he doesn't know anything about what we know as a viewer.
Exactly.
No fish tanks with heads or anything.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
But also from the comments on YouTube, we've got Keegan Guy, Quan Lifu, Drelliford69, Nando Velasquez.
What?
What?
You traitor.
Replying to one or two things.
Edge323, Drelliford again, and Jaguar Rider. We got Money Junior Pro 23, Jalad Wino, who had a question for us. Do you guys think Carl's angry with Rick, his father, for being the weak link right now and losing his mind? And I would say, I don't think he's angry. I think he's actually kind of came off understanding. He still seems to listen to Rick.
Yeah.
Although wanting to go off on his own, maybe not as child. Like, I think he feels like he's an adult.
Yes.
And I don't think he's angry with his father. Do you guys?
I don't think he's angry. I think he wants Rick to get it together, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like shape up, Dad.
Yeah, shape up, Dad. Yeah.
It's very similar to the comics in that respect too, with what happens in the comics that traumatizes Rick so much.
Yeah.
And Rick kind of goes. We have the phone call as well in the comics, and that's around the same time that
Rick's calling in right now.
that Carl is kind of the one who's trying to keep him on track because he knows what's going down. I mean, Carl's just younger, so it doesn't traumatize him as much.
Yeah.
So we've got also Maddie Medina in the chat with a theory. And what do you guys think? The theory about Noah, that random character who had kind of asthmatic attack. Maddie's theory is that Noah, while Woodbury invades the prison, he finds Beth in a lone room with Judith, thus making a Romeo and Juliet type storyline for the two. And then he has an asthma attack, causing him to be caught by the prison, and then attempting to get all the information out of him, a la Glenn, but Beth stops it. But then Rick, being a father type figure, sends him back with Woodbury, who tries to get all the info about the prison. So kind of a thing where using Noah a lot more.
That sounds like another standalone episode. That should be one episode itself, the love story between Noah and Beth.
No, it'd be a triangle because Carl is not going to be happy about this guy taking his woman.
I think outside of the fact that I really do think Noah was just a one-off character to showcase something, it's just we really don't see these smaller characters getting that much airtime, as we've seen with Axel and Oscar.
Yeah.
And I feel like if they're not going to get that much airtime, really a random character like this, you're not going to see.
You know, there's always a possibility of a web series or something. I mean, other shows do that from time to time.
Sure.
We
did find out Biker Chick.
Yeah.
So maybe a web series version.
Yeah.
Or we're just going to get to love Noah and then he's going to die.
Yep.
Like
from asthma. He's going to have an asthma attack and turn and then kill Beth.
Let's not have him on the show, you guys.
Yeah, exactly. We have a history.
So then we had Baha Val and David Walker commenting. And yeah, I was talking with on the chat. some of the people in the chat, it's just funny because really, when you think about it, pretty much every character we've had dies right afterwards, as you guys were saying. So
Yeah.
I was joking, we probably don't want to have Derriol on our show.
Yeah.
Or Steven.
And as much as
or Glenn.
as much as I want Lauren on our show, maybe I don't want her to be on the show.
Well, you know what? If she dies, then there's a lot more free time that you can try and hang out with her.
That's true.
There you go.
Yeah.
Point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
Free
All right,
schedule.
let's get to some predictions.
Just
Oh,
go.
all right.
AfterBuzz
I'm down
TV
for that.
Walking Dead predictions.
And
Nice.
we have
Cover.
creepy music anyways for the predictions, so
Yeah.
this works.
This works.
So we see Rick pissed at Andrea, and because the governor doesn't want to talk.
Yeah.
And I guess I really thought that Rick and the group were going to end up getting captured by the governor, and we are going to see a whole thing with that happen, and I guess not. So I guess they're going to come back. They're going to start preparing for a war and start trying to build defenses now that they have all these weapons.
I'm standing by what I said last week. I think Rick and Michonne are going to end up getting captured, maybe out of the whole group, because apparently it seems like Rick's going there for a parlay, and Michonne will probably be with him, and that the governor's going to enact his revenge on Michonne for getting his eye
You know
knocked
what?
out.
I'll take it. I'll agree with you.
Yeah. Okay.
I think there's going to be a major fight between the governor and Andrea, and I think that it's going to go head-to-head between those two in some format.
I think we're going to see another surprise Carl moment. He's going to defy somebody and he's going to save the day with something with Woodbury. I don't know what that could necessarily be. I think Andrea is going to be pissed at Philip. Because I'm betting he said no retaliation, and then obviously she's standing right there when Rick said, you said he wanted to do this. That's not going to work so well for his bed, later. That
Literally.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
Literally.
It's going to be a little colder.
If only Andrea had done what she needed to do
Last
week's episode.
Everybody was talking about that too at PaleyFest. Poor Andrea was Lori Holden. She goes, Chris Hardwick was the moderator and asked her, so how much do you get, crap if you're just kind of walking down the street about you should, kill the governor? And she goes, oh, all the time. Grocery store. When I'm getting gas, everybody comes up to me and says, you should kill the governor. Why are you with him? Like, they're angry at me. And she goes, and then I get a little defensive of Andrea. Like, well, she's doing this because she's trying to help people and she doesn't want anybody to die just because of it. And it was really, and she got actually teared up because they were also talking, she got into how much her character misses Dale and how much she takes that with her now. And I think she goes, and that's part of the reason that's having her really be connected to this town is because she lost Dale and she doesn't want to lose more people that way. And she got really teared up. So
interesting commentary, because I really didn't think about Dale too much other than thinking about who's the new Dale, which is sort of Herschel.
Yeah,
So it's nice to know that Andrea, at least as the actress, she tries to take that with her and put it into the character.
Yeah.
But
they have a history. I was just watching The Mist yesterday, and Dale and Andrea were in the movie together. So
Whoa.
there is a history of those two.
Wow.
maybe that's what it really was.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is.
you get so close to people that you work with when it's gone. They all said they have death dinners and they end up all crying at the end of it.
Yeah.
So it's got to be difficult.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, that does it for this week's edition of AfterBuzz Walking Dead. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And once again, I'm Dave Klein. You can find me on Twitter at @TheDaveKlein. That's KLEIN. Or go to my website, djk-online.com.
You can reach me at Nando Vel on Twitter. That's NANDOVEL. Or just right on YouTube. I'll respond or something. Or on Twitter.
All right, you can reach me at Derriol Kriston, DERRIAL CHRISTON.
You can find me on Twitter, Kristin Carole, CAROLE 13, or you can find my website, TheFan, FAN2CTOSEE.
We'll see you guys next week.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.